Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We'll take a moment to let everyone into the space. But my name is Elise Murphy. I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Recruitment here at the University of New England, and we're excited to welcome you to learn more about our Doctor of Nursing Practice and Nurse Anesthesia program. The cycle just opened up, I think it was last week on August 6th or 7th. Jess will confirm for us in a moment, but it's great to sort of have you join us, learning more about the program and applying if you are considering this cycle. Um, and we look forward to sort of spending the next hour with you. We have a brief presentation and we'll open it up to some Q&A. We are recording the session, so if you need to step away at any point, we will share the recording with you after the event. And one last housekeeping before my colleague introduces herself. Um, Please feel free to use the Q&A as questions come up, even if through the presentation. We'll make sure to get those answered during our discussion today. So without further ado, Jess, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I am Jess, and I am the admissions counselor for the D.N.P program at UNE.
Wonderful, Jess. Thank you. And if you are considering applying, Jess is the point person for our DNP program and is a go-to as you look through your application, have any questions. So you can always reach out to her and we'll share our email after the presentation. So let me share my screen. Allow me to get started. All right, so again, welcome to UNE. We're excited if you're learning about our institution for the first time or you've been exploring us for a bit. We're excited to connect with you about your interest in our DMP program. So again, we've introduced ourselves. My name is Elise, and Jess will be sharing quite a bit of information in just a few slides. But before we dive into some of the program info and really diving in deeply to applying the cycle, I just want to introduce you to UNE and our community. So we are very proud to say we're the #1 provider for health professionals in the state of Maine, with about 25% of our graduates staying in Maine or coming back to Maine. And we're really committed to educating health leaders who make a difference for their patients and communities. And alongside our DNP program, you can also see we have osteopathic medicine, dental medicine, occupational therapy, physical therapy, pharmacy, physician assistant programs, who all work and learn from one another within our UNE community. And we are truly leaders in healthcare collaboration and education. And in a moment, I'll show you our Portland campus for the health sciences, which is really a hub where all of these programs will be on the same campus. So if you aren't familiar with at least where we are, and if you've never visited Maine, we highly recommend it. I will share in a few short slides an opportunity to visit campus this fall. But we have a Biddeford and Portland campus. And as you can see, we're in southern Maine, so we're very close to New Hampshire, Vermont, Mass, Connecticut, Rhode Island. It's about a 5-hour drive to New York City. And we know during your first year in the program, you'll be remote for the majority of the time, but have some times where you come to campus. So it's a really accessible point, to all of New England. Here's just a quick look up our Biddeford campus. This is where we have our undergraduate program, but if you are, while you are on campus, during your time in the program. You have access to our Biddeford campus, which has a pool, gymnasium, ice rink, library, other study spaces, and a private beach. Maybe you're living closer to our Biddeford campus than our Portland campus, and it's just about a 30-minute drive between the two. So I like to mention that it's clearly a beautiful campus, and as is our Portland campus for the health sciences. So as I mentioned, this is where we have our College of Dental Medicine, College of Osteopathic Medicine, as well as our Westbrook College of Health Professions, which our Nurse Anesthesia program falls under. And of course, I'll come back and mention some dates to visit campus this fall, but if anyone has questions about living in Maine, living in Portland, we're always happy to answer. But we hope that today we can spend the majority of our time discussing your D&P program and applying. So, Jess, I will pass it off to you and let me know if you need me to change a slide, but I'll certainly listen as you go.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that, Elise. We are going to get into the specifics of the D.N.P program now. It is a 36-month full-time D.N.P program. We do have several guaranteed CRNA only clinical rotations. Every student is required to rotate through a CRNA only site, and many students have the opportunity to rotate through 2 different CRNA only sites. It is an exceptional regional anesthesia experience. We do have an amazing interprofessional simulation and innovation center where our students practice their clinical skills. Um, every student is guaranteed participation in more than 600 anesthesia cases as part of their clinical rotations. And our students learn alongside their faculty and peers in a collaborative health sciences environment that promotes interprofessional education. As Elise mentioned, we host many other health sciences programs on campus, and so we do our best to promote interprofessional learning with all of our health sciences programs. And now we'll get into the application requirements for the program. For the fall 2027 start, the nursing CAS application opened on August 6th of this year, and the verified deadline is February 1st of 2027. I do want to call special attention to that term verified. That means that nursing CAS must have received and verified your application by February 1st. So you'll want to submit minimum a couple days early, maybe even early, a little bit earlier if you can, to make sure you're giving them that time for that verification process. And if you have questions about that verification process, I would encourage reaching out to nursing CAS directly to get those addressed. These are some of the requirements for the D.N.P program. It is required that applicants have either a bachelor's degree in nursing or an associate's degree in nursing and a bachelor's degree in a science-related field. Applicants should already have an unencumbered current RN license and should have completed the ACLS and PALS certifications. While it is not a minimum requirement, it is very, very strongly recommended that applicants have received either their CCRN or their CEN. And applicants also must submit a resume or CV with their application. UNE D.N.P requires a minimum overall GPA and science GPA of 3.0. These GPAs are calculated by nursing CAS and does not include forgiveness for retakes, meaning that all attempts at a given course are averaged together. It is also strongly recommended that applicants have recent, maybe within the last 5 years, high-level coursework in one of those science subjects that's listed on the side there. Although we do want to mention the program is a competitive program, so meeting minimum admission requirements does not guarantee an interview or acceptance. Our average accepted students are well exceeding our minimum metrics. Applicants must also have completed biochemistry and statistics. Biochemistry must have been completed within the last 5 years. It cannot have been completed at a community college course, and it must be a 300 plus level biochemistry course. Additionally, applicants must have completed that course with a grade of B or better. If you're ever unsure if your biochemistry course works, you can always shoot us an email, or we do have a form linked on our website to get your biochemistry course approved ahead of time before applying. Applicants also must have completed a statistics course. The statistics course does not have any of those extra criteria, just any statistics course that you completed with a C or better at a college level. All transcripts must be submitted through Nursing CAS. You do need to submit every transcript you've ever had, even if you took a one-off course at a single institution a couple years ago. We need that transcript too, every institution that you've attended. 3 letters of recommendation are required. They must be submitted through Nursing CAS, and one of them must be from your immediate acute care nursing supervisor within the last 2 years that attests to your total length of time in years and months months that you have worked in the acute care setting as a registered nurse. The other two letters should come from individuals who can attest to the clinical and professional skills that you have. So do not be afraid to talk to your letter writers and discuss with them, what are you comfortable recommending me? What are you comfortable saying about me? And kind of have that discussion with them ahead of time. Applicants must have a minimum of 18 months of critical care experience. Those 18 months must be complete at the time of application submission, though it is worth noting that our most competitive applicants have 44 to 48 months or more of critical care experience. These experience hours must be completed within the US or in a US territory or on a US military base. It is also strongly recommended that applicants spend at least 1 day shadowing a CRNA in an operative setting. After submitting, you will want to be tracking your application yourself in NursingCast. I mentioned that verification process earlier. NursingCast will not always notify you if the verification process has stalled, if you are missing items. You will want to be checking that status regularly and reaching out to them if you think it's taking too long for your application to be verified. Once your application has been verified, it will be received by UNE, where we will do what's called preliminary review to ensure you've met all the minimum requirements. You will be notified when we receive your application and when your application is either found to be complete or has been found to be missing important requirements. And for all of those steps, you will be notified via email by UNE. Interviews are a required part of the application process and will be conducted virtually. And the Office of Graduate Admissions communicates interview invites to applicants via email.
Thank you, Jess. So we're coming to the end of our presentation. So as we move to our Q&A, definitely share any questions that have come up since our presentation. But I wanted to share just a save the date for our fall graduate open houses. We'll have one towards the end of September and another at the beginning of November. Both are on Saturdays, and it's a great opportunity to come see campus, connect with our D.N.P faculty as well as current students. We typically have between 5 and 6 D.N.P students at these events. You'll also get a tour of our simulation center and just get to make connections. It's also a nice opportunity for you to connect with maybe other prospective applicants or current applicants just to stay connected. But an invite will be going out, I think, at some point this week. So we definitely would love to see you there. And here, just lastly, is our contact information. As Jess mentioned, today we'll share a lot of information. Well, we have shared a lot of information, and then we'll answer your questions in just a moment. But if things come up after today or throughout the process, you're always welcome to reach out to Jess. Our email is gradadmissions@une.edu. And you also can follow the Nurse Anesthesia program on Instagram. So we'll take this down, stop sharing, and we'll open it up to Q&A. See, a couple people have started to submit questions. So we'll start there and then we can just answer them as they come in. All right. Sorry, it's always good to read them before we start asking them. So, a big section of the application is the coursework, and it does see that we have a question about organic chemistry, and if that would be accepted as a prerequisite, or is it preferred to have taken biochemistry? Well, we know the requirement around biochemistry. So, Jess, please answer this question.
Yes, organic chemistry is not accepted as a substitute for biochemistry. It must be a biochemistry specific course.
Okay. And just outside of the biochem and statistics prerequisites that you walked us through, are there other prerequisite courses that folks should know about? Should we send them the link to our admissions page?
We absolutely can send them to the link to our admissions page. The only required courses are those biochemistry and statistics
Oh,
courses.
Okay.
While it is strongly encouraged that students have recent upper level science coursework, the coursework is not specified. Whatever upper level science courses that you haven't taken yet, any that sound interesting to you, any that are within your budget, whatever your individual path is.
Great. Thank you, Jess, for that clarification. So another question about the courses. Do we accept classes from Portage Learning?
So we can accept coursework from Portage Learning in terms of that, recent science coursework that I mentioned. In general, Portage Learning can be a great place to kind of get some supplemental courses. We will not accept the biochemistry prerequisite from Portage Learning.
And Jess, are there options that you know of where students you recommend sort of exploring, online biochem classes that they could take?
Yeah, well, UNE Online does have a biochemistry course that's eligible. UC San Diego and MCPHS are also popular choices with our applicants. Um, there are plenty of courses out there that fit the required criteria. It's just a matter of, if you're already enrolled in a degree program, the biochemistry course at your institution might be the best choice for you. Or if you are on a strict budget, it might be better for you to kind of shop around and see which biochemistry course is the most affordable for you that still meets the criteria. So there's not any specific course that's recommended, although I do recommend checking with me ahead of time, again, if you have any concerns about the eligibility of the course that you've chosen.
I think that's a great idea, Jess. And just another question on the biochem class. Can it be sort of planned or in progress at time of application? Is there a date in which this course needs to be completed by? Just so that people can sort of plan out what is the timeline and scheduling this ahead of time. So, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, applicants have until that February 1st deadline to complete the course.
Mhm.
So if they apply before they're done with the course, they'll just want to make sure that they're listing the course on the application as in progress. Nursing Cast does allow you to do that. And it will be treated as if you have completed the course. And if you make it through the interview process and are offered acceptance prior to finishing that course, it will be conditional upon finishing that course. Although typically decision making does not happen prior to the deadline. So it's not generally much of an issue with applicants. You just have to make sure it's complete by that application deadline.
Good to know. And just one last clarification around the biochem and stat classes. Those would have to be within 5 years, but since those are our only required courses, other science courses can go beyond that 5 year time sort of restriction. Is that correct?
Yes, biochemistry is the only course that must be completed within the last 5 years.
Got it.
Statistics may have been completed whenever. In general, they recommend having recent coursework within the last 5 years just to show that you are still kind of in that habit of studying and learning and still capable of handling rigorous coursework after being in the workforce for a while. But there is no specific requirement other than biochemistry for within the last 5 years.
Great. And somebody had asked that so later in the question, so I'm glad we had clarified that about the statistics. So maybe we'll come back to some of the coursework questions as we get through the Q&A. But I wanted to just jump to another requirement that you mentioned. So an RN license, does that need to be within Maine or any US state that they work within?
It must be in the state that they are coming from, the state that they are practicing in. Um, they will need a Maine RN license once they get to the clinical portion of the program, but that's handled while in the program. And so to apply, you just need the license in whichever state you're practicing.
Great, thank you. So, a question about degrees. Are accelerated BSN programs and traditional BSN programs weighted the same or differently?
Applicants who have completed an accelerated BSN program do receive slight preference.
Good to know. Thank you, Jess. let me just see. Da, da, da. Oh, we answered the question about completed and in progress coursework.
Mhm.
Let's talk a little bit about applying and sort of what is that sweet spot, or when would you suggest folks apply? Can you sort of provide us some recommendations?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, the interview and decisioning process very rarely begin prior to the deadline. And when it does, it still continues far past the deadline. So every applicant that is verified by that February 1st date is fully and equally reviewed. So my advice to applicants is to apply when they feel most confident in their application. UNE D.N.P does not accept post-submission updates. So, whatever the hours are, whatever the GPA is when you submit, that is what you have, and that is what you're evaluated on. So, if you feel that you could make a much stronger application, waiting a couple months and submitting in December rather than September, I would recommend doing that and getting those extra hours in and getting those extra grades in, because there is truly no significant benefit to applying earlier in the cycle other than that you might hear back from us earlier about status updates on your application.
Jess, that's very helpful to understand because earlier is not always better, but it's always, person dependent. And we know that applications take some time to put together, but as Jess mentioned, a couple important notes, sort of once you submit, that's other than I think the biochem course, sort of that's what you're being evaluated on. So, and you can't project out hours, right? Just so if somebody's, still employed and working throughout the fall or have plans to shadow someone, they can't like report that on their application, right?
Correct. We do not accept projected hours or estimated hours. And again, once you've submitted, we will not be accepting updates later in the cycle of hours you've completed since submitting.
Yeah, so just some considerations. If you are ready, we welcome and invite you to submit your application. But I think if you are waiting towards the end of the application cycle, just be mindful of that verified process. So not submitting, 2 days before the deadline, but giving yourself at least a little bit of a grace period. But after that point, applications will be reviewed and candidates will be invited to interview. And I don't know if you can answer this just in sharing sort of this information, Jess, but do we work on rolling admissions?
No, no, it is not really a rolling admissions. Um, the interviews typically begin around or shortly after the deadline. Um, and it is typically more of well, the interviews are broken out and can take several months. It's not rolling in that, again, rolling is typically used as a sometimes they will fill the class before the deadline. That does not happen. Everyone who is submitted by the deadline receives full and equal consideration. Although okay, sometimes it depends on the pool, it depends on the schedule of interviews, a whole bunch of factors. Decisions may be rolled out all at once, or they may be rolled out in stages after the deadline.
Thank you, Jess. That's helpful. And what I heard, or sort of my takeaway is it might be some time before you hear back, especially if you are submitting before the application deadline, where again, we'll reach out and sort of let you know if there are any missing components, but I guess just anticipate that sort of the communication, may be set against this sort of timeline. So thank you, Jess. That's very helpful. Just one question about the biochem. Uh,
Mhm.
is lab required?
No, it is not required that you complete a biochemistry lab.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the ICU experience. We have a couple questions about does the experience need to have been recent? Does it need to be current? Is there sort of time, sort of limit on when those things should have recently happened? Just give us some details.
It is very strongly recommended that applicants be working full-time in a critical care unit at the time of application submission. And a big part of that is that required letter from a critical care supervisor. If you haven't been working in critical care for the last couple of years, that letter is not going to be up to date. Additionally, if you're only working part-time or per diem, or it's been a while since you worked in critical care, it may be difficult or impossible to get a quality letter of recommendation attesting to your critical care capabilities. So applicants should really be trying to be working full-time in a critical care unit once they are ready to apply, even if they stepped away previously.
Okay. Thank you, Jess. And there are some individual sort of situations. So I would invite those to reach out, I guess, just to clarify, because there's all different sort of, individual cases. Would that be more helpful, I guess, than sort of answering it live at this moment?
Absolutely. We really can only stay kind of general to the program and its requirements for these admission sessions. If you're concerned about your specific circumstances, if you have something unique going on, I would highly encourage you to reach out to me directly so we can talk it through.
And I'm trying to write down some names too, but we also recommend just following up so that we don't miss your question. Um, so, just a question along the same lines, but more geared towards the letter of reference or recommendation. When you say an acute manager in the past 2 years, does that mean it would be okay to use a manager that has very recently left? Just want to make sure I'm understanding that correctly. So even somebody who you haven't connected with or worked with in a while, what does that look like just for you?
I think it would really depend on how recent that is. If it's only been a couple months since they left, but they did previously work with you closely in that setting, they knew you for a while, and they left recently before, the cycle started. Yes, it's still fine if they're the one you get the letter from because your new supervisor won't know you as well. But if they left nearly a year or longer ago, your new supervisor should probably be the one to write that letter.
Okay. And regarding the other letters as well, there weren't specific requirements as to who they came from, but do you see sort of, individuals that you often get letters, from in the application process?
Yeah, most typically it's other types of supervisors, supervisors in other areas. Charge nurses is really common. Colleagues that they've worked with a long time. um, in a healthcare setting, there's so many. There's your fellow nurses, there's the doctors you're working with, there's the PAs you're working with, the lab techs you're working with. Honestly, any of them are capable of speaking to your professional and clinical qualities. So it's really a matter of discerning who knows me best, who's able and willing to attest to my skills, who do I have that strong relationship with, and kind of work off it from there.
That's great. Yeah, somebody had asked, could it come from somebody you shadowed? What about a charge nurse or an MD or an NP they worked with? So all of those
All of those are great options.
can be sources. Great. And do we accept any sort of additional letters, or is it just the two? Or excuse me, the three, right?
Yes, so we require a minimum of three. I believe Nursing Cast allows up to five.
And are those all reviewed or?
Yes, all letters that you submit will be reviewed.
Great. Okay. So that might be something to think about if you have a couple of individuals who can speak to you. But I guess just, that it's always true, quality over quantity,
Absolutely.
We need to hit the three, of course, but if they become redundant or if it's somebody who doesn't know you as well, we may just suggest having three strong letters, right, Jess?
Yes, absolutely. I would focus far more on making sure you get the truly detailed and quality letters over having a lot of them or trying to get specific titles from letter writers. I would be much more focused on the actual content that you can achieve.
Yeah, and good to know though, if you want to submit five, they will be reviewed. So just some things to think about. Um, how can we find more information about what specific classes count towards the science GPA? Is Nursing Cast the best resource?
Yes, Nursing CAS has a course subject guide available in their applicant help center. And any courses that are listed under their category natural sciences in that course subject guide are factored into the Nursing CAS Science GPA. They do also have a GPA calculator available for download that's already built out with everything you need. You just plug in your courses from that natural science category and it will calculate it for you.
Very good. Thank you for that. Um, a question about shadowing. Does UNE have their own shadowing forms that would need to be submitted along with the application?
No, the shadowing does not need to be verified, is entirely self-reported in the experiences section of your Nursing CAS application.
And I feel like I saw a question. I don't know if we answered it or if it's somewhere in here, but like, um, do you recommend sort of shadowing different CRNAs who maybe so you can see different cases? Any thoughts sort of on who and what students should sort of explore?
Absolutely. The more shadowing that you're able to do, the better, both for your application and also for your personal benefit. Of the more you get to see, the more you get to experience, the more questions you get to ask is always going to be helpful for you.
And funny, we just asked this. The next question, I'm not sure, and maybe somebody can clarify whoever submitted this, but is shadowing with AAs accepted as well for shadow hours? I don't
You
know.
can shadow as many different medical providers as you are able. It is all very valuable experience. It just won't be considered part of that recommended CRNA shadowing.
Mhm.
That is its own separate recommendation. But if you are able to get shadowing hours with other health professionals just to see what you can experience, again, yes, that is always very valuable experience. And it will, anything you put in your application will be thoroughly reviewed as part of that holistic review process.
Great, great question. All right, so just a time check, we have still about 28 minutes, so we've got plenty of time to continue to answer your questions. Let's switch gears and maybe ask a program question. Um, are clinicals multi-state or within just Maine?
Um, a lot of them are in Maine, but our clinical rotation sites are located throughout the region that we would consider northern New England. So Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, and I believe a couple in Vermont as well.
Okay, very nice. Let's see if there are any other questions about the program. Is the program front end loaded?
Um, in what way? Um, the
That was a
okay, so
great
the
question.
format of the program
Hmm.
is 2 semesters of hybrid learning. So it is remote learning where the students come to campus for, I believe, 2 weeks out of those 2 semesters. Um, but otherwise, it's completely remote lecture and lab learning. And then they come to campus for another 2 semesters of on campus didactic learning and work in the clinical skills lab. And then the remainder of the program is rotation through the clinical sites.
And just how long are the clinicals? Do you know sort of the length for each of those rotations?
It varies. It is kind of a dynamic process to ensure that every student gets like the clinical hours, the types of cases, the different skills. They need to be able to make sure they get all of that in their rotations. So it's a very dynamic process of them actively tracking the cases the students are working on through every rotation. And so sometimes if a student ends up in a rural site, maybe it was supposed to be a 6 week placement, but that site has been really quiet lately and they're not getting the cases they need. So we might do a split reevaluation and move them to another site. Or alternatively, a site might be getting a lot of cases in. And so instead of moving them to another site where we can't guarantee that level of caseload, we say, hey, do you want to just do another couple weeks at this one? So it's a very interactive kind of scheduling situation. so that we don't have an exact, each rotation lasts this long. They vary quite a bit depending on which site you're going to and when.
And the program is working with the students to sort of evaluate and keep connected on sort of what they're experiencing during each of these clinicals.
Yes, the students are tracking all of their cases through a shared software that the faculty and the program are monitoring. And there is constant communication back and forth on whether needs are being met and how many cases they've finished of how many specialties. And if they're okay where they are, need to be moved. It is a very ongoing process.
And somebody had asked about how the program supports students who may be struggling academically or clinically.
Yeah, so each student has a faculty advisor and mentor that they are highly encouraged to lean on when they need it. We do have a counseling center on campus that's available to all of our students. And I think most significantly, our Student Academic Success Center, which has content specific tutors for all of our courses in our health sciences programs, as well as more generic writing specialist and learning and study specialist tutors. We have group sessions, one on ones, drop in workshops. We are very proactive about our tutoring. Our tutoring center gives presentations to all of our new classes in the first month of being in the program. We have worked very hard on destigmatizing tutoring. We are proud to say that conservatively, at least half of our student body use our tutoring services every year. All of our content specific tutors are either current students or recently graduated students that took that same course, likely with that same professor. So they have a high level of kind of insider knowledge on that subject. So, really, we work very hard with our students to make sure that they are aware of our tutoring services, that they are aware of how to sign up for tutoring, that they are aware that there is no stigma, that we support them in that journey. It is a very, very important part of our campus is that academic support.
Yeah, thank you, Jess, for all that information. It's very similar to the clinicals. It's a cohort of 25 students, so the faculty are going to get to know you very closely. You're also going to get to know each other within the cohort very closely. And Jess, I don't know if you're able to answer this, but from your perspective, is the environment within the cohort competitive? Are students also sort of leaning on one another, helping one another out? Any thoughts?
Um, Yeah, the competitive part of the program is getting in. Once you're in the program, you are expected to collaborate with your fellow students, to lean on them for support, to help them. There is a lot of group work and teamwork included. Um, our program goes out of their way to look for students who have high levels of resilience and leadership ability and evidence of historical skill with collaboration and teamwork and things like that. It is a very collaborative program. Our students are highly encouraged to work together. As I mentioned, it comes into that dynamic clinical rotations aspect of the students are communicating with each other just as much as their faculty about what their needs are, what their cases are. They are expected to help each other learn and help each other grow.
Thank you, Jess. And just some quick questions about clinicals. And I don't know how much depth you're aware of, but do students get a say in which clinicals they go to, or are they assigned based off of what experiences are needed, or even just the sort of coordination of the schedules?
It's a little bit of both. To keep falling back on that word collaboration, the students are presented with the available sites and have the opportunity to put in requests for sites. And they're encouraged to submit at least 3 to 5 preferences so that then our clinical coordination team can get all those preferences together and do their best to assign everyone sites that both fits the preference they've requested as well as ensures everybody will get the clinical experience that they need and the cases that they need.
Okay. And do you know if students are exposed to trauma cases?
Absolutely, yes, that is a required part of the cases that they will need to do.
Can students work during the first year? We know that they'll start in the fall semester and that the first two, fall and spring, will be hybrid. So is there an opportunity for students to continue to work?
Students have worked during that time. It is not recommended by the program because it is still a high level of intense coursework. And so if you are choosing to work, we don't make you sign a contract saying that you're not going to work through those semesters. But it definitely is not encouraged. It is highly encouraged that your entire focus is on your schoolwork during that time.
Great, thank you. Um, and there are some questions that I just may not know, and that might be better sort of answered by the program, but I think are very important. So,
Mhm.
because many of our students may have families. So, do you know, Jess, and this might be going really into a lot of details, how does the program handle like absences or sort of things that come up with like, family, sick time, things like that? Is there any any details you may be aware of or have heard?
It's usually a very, very case basis. And so all I can say is students are encouraged to contact their faculty advisor as soon as they have any inclination that they may have to miss some class or work time. And their faculty advisor will do what they can to accommodate that student. And in a general sense, unfortunately, that's as far as we can promise because it is a very intense program. And we strongly recommend putting your full focus into the program. And so there are times where we can't really make a lot of room for absences, but we will do our best to accommodate students who need it.
Yeah, and from your perspective, thank you, Jess. That's very helpful. And from your perspective, because you've began working with the program, um, how is it to sort of connect with the program director or faculty that you've engaged with? Is there, just from your overall experience, what is that sort of connection like?
It is great. We have a small program very intentionally. We admit 25 students a year. That's it. And that is with the intention of keeping that very close relationship between the students and the faculty, making sure the faculty don't just know the students' names, but know who they are and where they came from and what they want to do and who they want to be. A lot of our health sciences faculty kind of take the approach of you're not just a student, you're a future colleague, and the relationships are approached that way. And so, personally, I think the faculty are great. I have a great time working with the program director, Carrie, and our students do also seem to be very close with their faculty members. The program director, Carrie, she knows them all by name. She knows who all of them are. She knows all their families' names. It is a super close knit community.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. And I will say, if you have the opportunity to come visit during our open houses, you will have that chance to connect more personally with our faculty and really hear from our current students what it's really like day to day and how they get through it. Um, so, just a time check, we still have about 15 minutes, so glad that you're able to stay on, or if you're watching this back, we hope this information has been helpful. So we have a couple questions about sort of what does that competitive student look like? So can you kind of give us a profile of what that student is?
Absolutely. So, first off, I do want to mention I touched on it a bit back in the requirements section. While it is not required, the CCRN certification or the CEN certification is very, very strongly recommended. The majority of accepted students over the past several years already had their CCRN or CEN when they applied. So that would be the first step to being a competitive applicant is getting that certification. Another one is, as I mentioned, that recent upper level science coursework within 5 years is a big deal. Um, Alternatively, having instead of recent coursework, if that's not feasible for you or if you are working full time, having a very high number of critical care hours. Our minimum requirement is 18 months. Our more competitive students have 44 to 48 months. So trying to get up to that, if not higher, would be really ideal. More in a general sense, they are looking for that kind of sense of resilience It's a tough profession. It's a very tough program. If you don't truly have a passion for the profession, and if you don't have that grit, um, it's going to be hard. It's going to be nearly impossible. It may be impossible. So they're looking for that really intense, like resilience and bounce back. They're looking for that really strong passion for nurse anesthesia, and things like that, as well as I touched on, the leadership qualities, the teamwork abilities. Being able to work as part of a team is crucial, both in the program and in the profession.
Thank you, Jess. That's very helpful. And Jess, I wanted to ask this question, and if you can't answer it directly, maybe you can just sort of share a little bit more about our interviews. So, sort of what are the interviews evaluating? Are they more pharmacology based or about assessing emotional intelligence? Are they both? What can you share, even if it's just who is the interviewers and what are they looking for?
Yeah, so usually it's kind of a panel interview. Usually it's a couple faculty members and maybe even a current student or two conducting the interview. And at the point of interview, they've already looked at your transcripts, they've looked at your resume. They know what your qualifications are. So at the point of interview, a lot of it is going to be that community fit, trying to gauge like your personality, your skills, your attributes. They're looking for that resilience portion. They're looking for that leadership bit. There will probably be some clinical math in the interview, but a lot of it is just that fit that they're looking for at that point. Will you fit into the program? Will you fit into the clinical sites? Will you fit into the profession? Will you be a successful nurse anesthetist is kind of the overall concept.
Yeah. And through this process, they're really looking for those students who are ready for that next. Because as you've heard from Jess, it's a very rigorous program. So the faculty want you successfully coming in and completing the program. And I wanted to ask about, I think it was in here, but pass rates for do you know anything about sort of how students are doing on their boards?
So we recently transitioned from a master's program to a doctoral program. So we did have very good pass rates. Our first time pass rate was in the 90s for the last few years for our master's program. We do not yet have any data on our doctorate program, as our first doctorate class just graduated this past year. And so we are still waiting on getting those test results back to aggregate the data and make that available.
Very good. We do have a couple questions in here, and if you can't answer, that's certainly understandable. But how many applications do we get within a cycle for cycle to cycle?
We do not publish exact numbers, but I can say that we get upwards of a few hundred applications every year, minimum, for this class of 25 seats.
Okay, thank you. Um, is the PALS mandatory upon application completion?
Yes, the ACLS and the PALS must be acquired. You must have those valid certifications by the time you submit. You must have already received those.
Okay, thank you. And I guess along the sort of line of, how many applications we're receiving for, the 25 seats, do you see applicants reapplying? And if so, do you have any recommendations? Just any insights that you have are always helpful, Jess. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, we do see quite a few reapplicants. Again, the small class size, even when we get a lot of amazing qualified applicants, we simply are not able to accept them all. So, unfortunately, some students do have to try more than once, sometimes a few times before they manage to get into the program. And that is okay. That is very common. I do recommend the biggest recommendation is to just keep working between the cycles because every year we ask you, have you applied before? And if so, what have you done to improve yourself since your last application? So if all you can say is, I stayed at my job and didn't do anything new, that doesn't that doesn't speak to that growth mindset. That doesn't speak to that leadership mindset. Okay, 1 year you didn't get in. So what are you doing differently? What bigger things are you doing? What are your new ambitions to become more qualified for this? Are you taking on any leadership experiences in your role? Are you taking on precepting or charge shifts? Are you pursuing any further certifications? Have you been participating in continuing education? Have you been continuously trying to better yourself in that quote unquote downtime between application cycles?
Okay, thank you. I wanted to come back to a question about the clinicals
Mhm.
and what students do about housing. Um, and is there housing provided under the tuition?
So there are a small number of sites that either come with housing or with a housing stipend. But unfortunately, for the majority of them, the housing is on the responsibility of the student. We do have a lot of resources to assist students in finding housing. We have landlord databases and histories of where students have stayed. It is not uncommon for students to collaborate. If 3 students in a row are going to rotate through a specific site, they might go in on a room or Airbnb together and then pass it between hands as they rotate out, is a fairly common practice. Um, but ultimately, yes, while we are here to assist in that process, the final responsibility is on the student to find housing for those sites.
Okay, thank you. So just a time check, we have about 9 minutes left. So we're happy to continue to answer any questions. There was a question about the GPA, and if you can share the average cumulative GPA and science GPA that students in the most recent admitted cohort had.
Absolutely. By all of the GPA metrics we're looking at, the overall, the science, the last 60, um, because as implied with the holistic review, while we only have a minimum requirement for overall and science GPAs, all of your GPAs, all of your grades, all of your transcripts are being reviewed. So there are other calculations they're looking at, such as your last 60, your undergraduate versus graduate, et cetera. But our major GPAs, the overall, the science, the last 60, the average accepted student had between a 3.5 and a 3.7 in those metrics.
Thank you, Jess. So
Mhm.
we've actually run through the majority of our questions. If we didn't answer your question, we invite you to follow up with us individually. Um, Often we just need a little bit more information or your questions just very individual, so we don't answer them generally in this session. But just as we sort of wrap up our session, we'll wait for any final questions. But um, do you have any sort of common questions that you get that we haven't answered, or any areas that you would want to? We did get one more question, but just any other areas that you'd want to sort of highlight for people considering applying the cycle. For anyone in a future cycle, this is helpful guidance, but please circle back when you are ready to apply, just so you're aware of any changes with the process.
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, I think we touched on quite a bit of it. Um, Really, just ultimately, it's always going to be that kind of sense of going above and beyond for this type of competitive program, this type of intensive profession. And so there's no such thing as too much information. If you've done something, if you've accomplished something, we want to hear about it. Even if you don't think it's relevant, we might. Um, and kind of tangentially off that, it is always best to reach out to me if you're unsure of anything. If you have any questions or concerns, it is always better to ask than to guess. My entire job is to be here to help you. You cannot annoy me with too many emails, or there's no such thing as a bad question except for the one that goes unasked.
Thank you, Jess. I think that's an important reminder. So two last questions, and I think one of them is very important. And just from your, well, three last questions. Just from your perspective, is it realistic to support yourself through school solely on loans?
I think that one unfortunately is very situational. If it is just you, probably. But It is a higher level program. A lot of our students have families, a lot of our students have other support systems that they're leaning on. And so I can't say in a general sense whether it's realistic or possible for a student to do that. There's so many factors that go into place. There's so many factors that affect whether a student is eligible for loans or how many loans they're eligible for. But I would strongly encourage anyone concerned about that to reach out to our financial services office and start seeing ahead of time what their options might be.
Yes, I think that's very helpful guidance, and we would recommend you reaching out to our student financial services. I will send the link in the chat, but they're a great group and would be happy to connect with prospective students as well. As we all know, there have been a lot of loan changes. So you have some time to plan and inform yourself, and you have resources that, you don't need to be a current UNE student to utilize. We have some great team members over there who are experts in this area and can walk you through it. So we do invite you to reach out and just gather that information so that you can plan appropriately. But I think just what you said was definitely something to consider. So again, Jess, what is the best way to reach you?
You can absolutely email me at any time. That's just gradadmissions@une.edu. And I wish I had it off the top of my head. You can also call me at any time, 207-221-4225, whatever is best for you. You can also schedule a meeting with me on our website. There is an availability to schedule a meeting with me. You can schedule either a Zoom meeting or a phone call, whatever you're more comfortable with, and kind of book me for a quick advising meeting and check-in session if you're more comfortable with that.
Thank you, Jess. And maybe if we have time, one last question. What do you feel makes UNE's program special to your school, or what makes UNE a special place just generally to be, Jess, from your perspective?
For me, I think it really does come down to that sense of community. As I mentioned, it's a very close-knit program. We have small class sizes, not just for our nursing program, but for a lot of our health sciences program, for that same kind of intention of keeping a very close-knit community, keeping people who know each other. You always see students hanging out on campus, hanging out just like picnicking in the grass or playing soccer or just enjoying some time outside and enjoying some downtime with each other. We have a lot of ice cream socials and coffee connections and food trucks on campus, really trying to hold in that community sense on a campus that doesn't have any residential buildings. I think we do a great job of still keeping up that sense of community and having this kind of homey space on campus available for everyone, I think has been really special for our students.
Well, thank you, Jess. So I think we'll end, and I say ditto to that, Jess. This session will be shared after. So tomorrow you'll all get a link, and you'll also get contact information for our office. I do see someone said they're looking forward to meeting us at the open house, and we agree. We look forward to meeting you as well, and are excited to continue to stay connected to you all. Jess, again, is a great, great resource, and we look forward to this exciting next step, whether it's this cycle or next cycle. And Jess, thank you again for your time. You shared a lot of helpful information. So um, we'll end it here. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of their day, and we look forward to staying in touch. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.